You're watching the Sweet Jimmy Network. It's a hot place to live.
I blew George and Harvey's brains out with my stick gun!
Following a failed attempt to block a proposed facility for troubled youth in his home district, former police officer and firefighter Dan White resigned his seat on the Board of Supervisors of the City of San Francisco. White had previously voted for bills put forth by his colleagues despite his own personal moral objections, and he felt betrayed by the lack of support. This didn't sit well with his conservative backers, and he sought to rescind his resignation. Mayor George Moscone originally told White he'd consider giving the seat back, but ultimately caved to pressure by his liberal board, specifically Carol Ruth Silver, Willie Brown, and the city's first openly gay elected official, Harvey Milk. Moscone blocked White from taking back his seat. On the morning of November 27, 1978, White entered City Hall through a basement window, evading the recently installed metal detectors at the main entrance. He entered Moscone's office, where the mayor and supervisor Willie Brown were chatting informally. As Brown left the office, White entered, ostensibly to discuss his reappointment. Moscone invited White into his office to share a drink. Minutes later, White shot and killed Moscone. White walked out of the mayor's office through a side exit and noticed Harvey Milk's aide. According to his confession, he then confronted Milk in his office. 10 minutes after assassinating the mayor, he opened fire on Milk. White immediately fled the scene, and board president Dianne Feinstein discovered Milk's body. Less than 30 minutes later, Feinstein addressed the press, who had gathered for a scheduled press conference to announce White's replacement. Feinstein instead announced the assassination of Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Milk.
Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed.
White later surrendered himself to his former police precinct, and Feinstein was sworn in as acting mayor in fulfillment of Moscone's term. Less than a year later, Feinstein sought to be elected to the position into which she had been thrust, but her election was far from a sure thing. The 1979 ballot for San Francisco mayor was crowded. Feinstein was opposed by longtime Supervisor Quentin L. Kopp, the openly gay David Scott, and punk rock singer Jello Biafra. Hi everybody, Brendan here with another special edition of This Month in Punk Rock History. It's November 2024, and this month in punk rock history, we take a look at Jello Biafra's campaign for mayor of San Francisco, which ended on Election Day, November 6th, 1979. But first...
Ladies and... Hey!
This month in punk rock history, 60-second album review. Greetings from the underground.
The Sweet Jimmy Network. Yep, we're still here.
Born and raised in Boulder, Colorado, Eric Boucher was encouraged as a child to watch the news and learn what's going on in the world. It was a turbulent time, and Boucher's social worker father and librarian mother felt it was important not to shield the boy from the harsh realities of life. He would watch cartoons and then switch to the news. He saw on the small screen the assassination of John F. Kennedy and the Nigerian Civil War against the secessionist state of Biafra. He tells Kerrang! Magazine that he, quote, blundered onto a rock station trying to get to sleep one night. He soon discovered the Stooges, MC5, Captain Beefheart, and Frank Zappa. He was hooked. In March of 1977, the Ramones came to Colorado. Boucher was inspired by Joey and became determined to become the lead singer of a rock band. But first, he would have to settle for a roadie. In the early days of the Ramones, their tours were kind of haphazard and dates were filled in on the fly. When they returned to Colorado in 1979, they were persuaded by the Boulder Theater booker to come back for a second night. The local opener was perhaps Colorado's first punk band, the Ravers. Boucher acted as roadie that night. The Ravers put out one EP, landed a record deal, moved to New York, and changed their name to The Nails. They didn't take their roadie with them. Boucher graduated high school and put together his first band. While most retrospectives call them avant-garde, Boucher says the Healers were just, quote, banging on instruments we didn't know how to play when our parents weren't home. The Healers didn't last long, and their few recordings remain solely in the memories of Boucher and friend John Greenway, until the release of a 2009 compilation meant to document the early Colorado scene, which includes all three of the Ravers' songs, Goddess of Love, Tear It Down, and California Uber Alice. After a summer in England seeing bands like Wire and the Saints, Boucher enrolled in UC Santa Cruz. Citing frustration with his, quote, pathetic deadheads with rich parents, peers.
Problem is America. It is our greedy multinational corporations that keep everyone else in poverty.
He left the university and returned home to Colorado, working in the laundry of a nursing home until he was able to save enough to return to the West Coast and settle in San Francisco, where he arrived just in time to see the local punk scene explode. According to Alex Ogg, one of the first people Boucher met there was Negative Trend's Will Shatter, who encouraged the Colorado expat to join a band. Boucher soon answered an advertisement placed by seasoned guitarist Ray Pepperell, who was looking to start a band. Boucher first chose Occupant as a stage name, but soon changed it to Jello Biafra, a name compiled from a random notebook. Biafra tells Turned Out a Punk podcast that the name appealed to him because of the juxtaposition between nutritionless dessert and secessionist Nigerian state that was starved into submission in 1970.
You know, I like the surreal way the two images collide in the mind. Jello, of course, we know what that is. And then Biafra was a part of Nigeria, the southeast corner, who tried to secede in the late 60s, and maybe that war lasted into the early 70s. It was overshadowed, of course, by Vietnam, because the Nigerian army surrounded the attempted Republic of Biafra and starved them to death, basically. Choked them off, and so all the pictures of the starving Biafran children lying all over the ground, bloated with their eyes out, and it was just gut-wrenching.
Veteran rock bassist Jeffrey Lyle, aka Klaus Fluoride, was the next to answer the ad, which concluded with the band's home base and its contact person, East Bay Ray.
Klaus Fluoride named me East Bay Ray. What happened, the ad in the paper, you know, it was blah, 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 and I was trying to tell the geographical location that I was based in, and then went East Bay, and then there was a space, and Ray, and then my phone number.
New to the West Coast, when Lyle called the number in the ad, he wasn't sure who to ask for. East Bay? Ray? East Bay Ray? And so a band, without a drummer, was born. After discarding the suggested name of Thalidomide, they settled on the Biafra-suggested Dead Kennedys, which was actually stolen from an existing Cleveland band. Perhaps a bit hastily, they quickly booked their first show. Biafra was already a known scenester, so when word got out that he started a band, people showed up out of sheer curiosity. As it turns out, they were pretty good, and it didn't take long for the Dead Kennedys to amass a local following. Less than a year after their live debut, they made their recorded debut with the release of the single California Uber Alles on their own label, Alternative Tentacles Records. Mabuhay Gardens was the San Francisco equivalent of New York's CBGB in that if you wanted to cement your place in the scene, that's where you played. Mabuhay bookings were set at a monthly meeting, and booker Dirk Dirksen required photographs of the band, so the Dead Kennedys quickly grabbed Carlo Cadona to pose as drummer. Cadona informed them he could actually play guitar, and he was added to the lineup as rhythm guitarist under the name 6025. Finally, a guy named Bruce Ted Schlesinger, also new to town, put up an ad on a bulletin board as a drummer seeking a band. It was fate. Klaus called him and invited him to try out. With only 5 days before their first gig, the original lineup was complete, and they made their live debut on July 19, 1978 at Mabuhay Gardens. The always outspoken Biafra recalls going to a Per Ubu show with DK drummer Ted, who challenged the frontman.
I was folded up in the back of his Volkswagen Bug, and he was saying, "Yeah, Biafra, you got such a big mouth, you should run for president." No, run for mayor.
Rather than laugh off the drummer's comment, Biafra started to ponder the feasibility of such a prank.
Mayor election was coming up, so I thought, aha, I think I will.
He immediately bragged to his friends about his intention to run, but when asked what he intended to do as mayor, Biafra came up blank. The gears quickly started turning, and with a felt-tipped pen, he started to write out his political platform on napkins, only feet away from the stage where Per Ubu was playing. But how exactly does one become a candidate?
You file a declaration of candidacy and take out petitions, and if you get so many names of registered voters on the petition, then you're in. Or, in the case of San Francisco, you can simply pay the difference and buy your way onto the ballot, too.
The next day, Biafra made his candidacy official by going to City Hall through the front door and requesting a petition to appear on the ballot. I never went door to door, Biafra says, or worked with grassroots to make it more serious. With the support of Mabuhay booker Dirk Dirksen, a benefit show is held to raise the necessary funds to get on the ballot. With a few signatures and $1,254, Jello Biafra was an official candidate for mayor of San Francisco. With a slogan swiped from the popular dessert brand, it didn't take long for Biafra's campaign to attract media attention.
Wait a minute, here comes Jello. There's always room for Jello.
In several retrospective accounts, Biafra acknowledges the campaign was, at least in part, a great prank. But when asked by the press if his campaign was a joke, he replied,
"It is no more of a joke and no less of a joke than anyone else running you care to name."
While other candidates promised to clean up corruption, unify the city, strike a balance between profits and people, effect radical change, financial solvency, gay rights, and codified homophobia, Biafra's campaign proposals included requiring businessmen to wear clown suits within city limits, holding elections in which police would be voted into office by neighborhoods they patrolled, tearing down Pier 39, legalizing squatting in vacant tax-delinquent buildings, paying the unemployed to panhandle in wealthy neighborhoods, splitting the proceeds 50-50 with the city, banning cars citywide, and erecting a statue of Dan White, and having Parks Department sell eggs, stones, and tomatoes with which to pelt it. The official campaign info brochure reads, "I will ban automobiles, legalize squatting in unoccupied buildings, auction off all high city government positions, clean up Market Street by requiring downtown businessmen to wear clown suits, and tear down Pier 39. Police officers should be required to run for election. The neighborhoods they patrol would vote yes or no confidence. I will ease tension in the city by erecting statues of Dan White throughout town. The Parks Department will sell eggs, stones, and tomatoes to throw at them." His main opponent, Dianne Feinstein, also promised to clean up Market Street. While Feinstein meant increased police presence in the Tenderloin and breaking up homeless encampments, Biafra's promise was a bit more literal.
Jello says since he saw Mayor Dianne Feinstein trying to clean up the Tenderloin with a broom, he's decided to clean up her neighborhood with a vacuum cleaner. He's also starting to show up at candidates' nights, and as you might imagine, he was quite a hit at the recent meeting of the Nob Hill Neighbors Association. Biafra tells Louder Sound, quote, "It never occurred to me to print up much in the way of campaign literature or go door to door or do many events. The few events he did do were often media-baiting stunts." Dead Kennedy's bassist Klaus Floride says, quote, "Biafra was theater-trained, and he knew how to use it." With his $20 suit and borrowed shoes, Biafra led a whistle-stop tour on the BART and held a rally in front of City Hall with supporters holding signs which read, "Biafra, the American Dream. Jello, because conformity is death. For your children's sake, vote Biafra. If he doesn't get elected, I'll kill myself." That one was held by then-manager Chi-Chi, who, in fact, did not kill herself. Now, if you've ever followed any election campaign, you know that endorsements can make or break a candidate. The San Francisco Chronicle supported Kopp, the Examiner supported Feinstein, and Damaged Fanzine supported Biafra, calling his campaign heroic, historic, and mostly hysteric. In addition, Kopp secured the endorsement of California Governor Jerry Brown.
My heart smiles and never frowns.
Feinstein was endorsed by President Jimmy Carter, and Biafra was endorsed by punk fan Mike Hennessy, who was himself campaigning for sheriff.
Eyewitness News with Wendy Takuda, Jerry Norman with weather, Jan Hutchins with sports, and the Channel 5 Eyewitness News team.
Finally, on a rainy November 6, 1979,
Yeah, it looks awfully wet.
roughly half of the city's registered voters turned out to fulfill their civic duty. With 81,115 votes, Feinstein came in at number 1. With 77,784 votes, Kopp took second place. David Scott landed 18,506 votes, and Jello Biafra received 6,591 votes. Sadly, Biafra did not win the race, but he claims credit, along with Scott, for forcing a runoff election. To win the race, the candidate must receive more than 50% of the vote. Neither Kopp nor Feinstein met that milestone, but with Scott's endorsement, Feinstein handily beat Kopp in the runoff election. Feinstein told Damage that Biafra's campaign had nothing to do with the real issues, but that he had made the race, quote, more interesting. Biafra never had a real chance of winning. He never really wanted to win. But his 6,591 votes, at a time where punks numbered in the lower hundreds, is indicative of the power of satire. By vacuuming Dianne Feinstein's hydrangeas, he called attention to the social issues like the disparity between upper-class Pacific Heights neighborhood and the derelict Tenderloin. His proposed Dan White statue served to create a sense of unity among San Franciscans.
We're a big unruly mob!
And selling eggs and rocks to be thrown at these statues helped balance the budget. Banning cars in favor of mass transit and a whistle-stop tour on the BART acknowledged environmental concerns.
Is he for Jello or against Jello?
Jello Biafra's 1979 mayoral campaign not only made people stop and think, it helped shore up the political component of the still developing punk rock scene and cemented the place of Dead Kennedys as one of the most revered political punk bands in history. In addition, by running for mayor, Biafra paved the way for future punks to effect change through political office. Joey Shithead of Vancouver's DOA is now Councillor Shithead for the city of Burnaby, British Columbia. TSOL's Jack Grisham was among the 135 candidates seeking to replace California Governor Gray Davis in 2003. New York City's 47th Council District is led by Justin Brannon, bassist for New York Hardcore's Indecision. Nirvana's Krist Novoselic unsuccessfully ran for county clerk in 2009. And in April 1993, along with future At the Drive-In Mars Volta singer Cedric Bixler, former congressman and one-time presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke put out a 7-inch with his post-hardcore group Foss. So that's it for our look at Jello Biafra's campaign for mayor. What other punks turned into politicians? Leave a comment and let me know. And while you're there, feel free to offer any other comments, corrections, info, or insights. And join me in December for a quickie with the Dickies. See what I did there? For this month in punk rock history, I'm Brendan McCabe.
No. FBI. It's against the law to broadcast pornography. You boys should have read the Meese Commission reports before you tampered with the airwaves.
What? You have the right to remain silent.
No fucking way!
Remember what we did to Jello Biafra?